Hey, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Let's take a look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for the Switch 2. This has just recently launched. I want to share my thoughts and analysis on the game itself and explain how the developers were able to get the game running so well. It runs pretty smoothly. This is just the demo, but the final version of the game that has officially launched does actually run better than the demo. I've been watching the situation. I want to explain how they were actually able to improve the performance overall. Let me go ahead and get myself out of the scene here. Shrinking technique! Ha! Okay. So, something that I noticed that I thought was pretty neat while just sort of swinging the sword around here is that there are sparks when Cloud strikes interactable objects. You see the log here. If I hit that, you get a nice reaction of the spark, which I think is pretty neat. You can see that the rocks that are here in the environment that I originally thought, oh, am I interacting with the rocks? Actually, no. So what that tells me is that these rocks are not designed to be interactable. They're actually not really programmed as separate objects. What these are part of the material of the ground. Now, there are points where they are 3D models, and there are points where they are not 3D models. So you see how my foot is able to go into the rock like that. So this is an example of texture tessellation, and tessellation is a technique that we use that is part of the texture or the material itself. The material, every piece of geometry has a material in the game world, and the material basically makes it look like something. Otherwise it would just be a wireframe 3D model, and it's going to be much more noticeable in some areas, but tessellation makes the texture have more geometry. So you can see that there will be some situations where this rock looks like I can interact with it. If I swing my sword, I will hit it. You'll see some physics interaction and the sparks, but these other rocks are not really rocks. None of these are really rocks. There are no rocks in these games. These are 3D models that are designed to look like something that evokes our shared cultural memory of what a rock is. Most of us have seen a rock. If you have not seen one before, then you might be living under one. You can see that Cloud's foot is going into the rock itself. That, to me, tells me that this is using tessellation to make the environment have more geometry to it. In essence, it adds geometric data where there previously isn't. This could be a flat plane. You know, for example, this could be just a flat 3D model that we're walking on, and if you have tessellation on the material, then it will actually add some geometry on top of that. Now, what is wrong with that approach is that you don't have collision data when it comes to tessellation. But tessellation, it saves time, because instead of having to model the visuals and instead of having to manually place these rocks one at a time, you can just put a setting, some instruction on the material itself and say, oh, well, just make this more bumpy, make this extend up from the ground. And so it's a time-saving measure, and that's something where this game features massive, huge sprawling environments, right? It is massive, and to manually place each individual rock would take a lifetime. So all of these things, like when you go oblique here and you see these details of the little bumps in the ground, that is a result of tessellation. Otherwise, you'd have to go and manually place rocks everywhere. So with tessellation, you can just do that in a faster, more automated manner. So that's pretty good to have that. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of artifacting here in terms of the visuals. You can see a hard seam here on the ground. This is actually, you can see it come to a corner here and a corner here. These are the kind of things that we need to watch out for as developers. What most likely is happening is that this environment is made up of multiple pieces of geometry, and then the geometry is just layered atop each other. It's a form of kit bashing. You can either build an environment as one whole piece and sculpt it all in your 3D modeling program. In the engine, it's much faster to kit bash. There are ways to actually blend these together. For example, there's a couple solutions. This game is made in Unreal. In Unity, there are solutions in Unity that you'll have to buy it from the Unity Asset Store. And this is one of the huge flaws with Unity, is anything that's good is you have to either make the solution yourself or buy it from the asset store. And then when Unity updates their game engine, they could actually break that solution and then destroy the whole solution in your game so it doesn't work anymore. So there is a solution, or a number of different solutions in Unity where it will actually let those two pieces of geometry blend into each other. So this is a situation where it is noticeable. It is a technical flaw. I would have liked to have seen a bit more. This is a situation where I would use the word quality, because this is a little low quality when you see a technical flaw like that. But again, you need to balance out. They're making huge environments and they don't really have time to focus on the quality. You have to balance out quality with quantity, and this game just has a ton of quantity when it comes to the environments. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that this is just part of game development. It's something that if they had the resources to focus on this, they could have fine-tuned this and not made that so visible. But I'm sure there are other situations in the environments where we will notice things like this as well. But this is something that I've noticed as a game developer. You can see that they've actually, I think this is manually placed here. I doubt that they just let the game just automatically populate with details. So it looks like they hid the corner so that it's less visible by putting a plant there. And that's something you can do as well, as you can hide the seams by having more geometry placed in the way. I would have put a bit more grass or some more rock, manually placed rock, to hide that. But this is also a situation where people wouldn't notice that because they're just going to run through it. One of the ways that they were able to get the game to run sufficiently on the Switch 2 is the effects for volumetric lighting. Volumetric lighting is a technique we use to simulate a sense of depth and density and moisture in the atmosphere. You can see a shadow being cast there from the light. That's a shadow shaft, and you have light shafts sort of pouring in, but that's not really a light shaft. This is volumetric lighting. A light shaft would be if there was a light source and then there's sort of light beams shooting into your eye holes. That is a shadow shaft there as the environment is being occluded by some geometry there. How they were able to get this to run well, because this is a very demanding visual effect when it comes to the processing of the game. It negatively impacts the frame rate significantly. So this has a high performance cost, this kind of effect. So what they've done here is they've actually have this running in a lower resolution. If you compare this to the PC or the PS5 version or the Xbox version of the game, this has a lower resolution and there's a bit more of graininess to it. And that's something that I've had to do with my games. I've got a game coming out on the Switch soon that uses volumetric lighting, and it just has to be quite low resolution and grainy in order to balance out the frame rate. I think they've done a great job balancing this out because the lighting still looks fantastic at volumetric lighting. Very nice. Let's see here. Something that I have seen in other people's gameplay on the final version of this game on Switch 2 is that the density of NPCs is reduced. So when you are walking through towns, the NPCs cause the frame rate to drop. And so in the final version of the game, the number of NPCs is significantly reduced. The reason why that helps because every single object that exists on screen has a rendering cost. Even before that, their assets have to be loaded into memory. So the 3D model for the character and the textures for the character need to be loaded in. Also the animations. So as you're walking around, this game streams assets in real time. So you get stuttering as you get close enough to the object, and then it has to load those in. But in this game, there are level of details to where it loads in lower quality versions of the model, and then as you get closer, it loads in higher quality versions of the models. Let me go ahead and defeat these enemies right quickly here. Let me see. Oh, do I not have enough MP to cast my magic? Okay. So I'll see if I can stay on topic while I'm button mashing here. I'm receiving damage and I may need to... Oh, I can't use items. Okay, so I will have to play a little bit more carefully. I'll just use my shield. So I think it was a great call because the NPCs that you don't even interact with are not important. And so what the developers have done is they've prioritized the performance of the game, which I think was a very good call. So having less NPCs means that the game can run at a higher frame rate. Great call on that. It means that there's Okay, sure. So okay, now I think now I'm allowed to use my commands menu here. I have some blue bars here, okay? And I will use a Mega Potion. So when we're developing games and as we're fine-tuning them and adjusting them, we need to balance out, we need to prioritize different elements because we have a budget for memory, we have a budget for rendering. So the memory was not the issue really for this game. The developers have already downscaled the texture resolution. I'll go ahead and block that. I'm not sure if that how effective that was, or I should have avoided that. I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. I think I might go to finisher mode just to do a little bit more damage on this guy. I've staggered him. Okay, so what the developers have done is they've cut down the number of NPCs that are visible, and these are NPCs that didn't contribute anything to the overall experience anyway, so I think it's fine to do that. They had already previously reduced the density of environmental props, so when you go into houses, things like paintings on the wall, furniture, little things on tables like cups and photos and flowers and vases in houses have been reduced. And oh, I was Breath of the Wild that. That's fun. Okay, I had to look down. I'm not that old. I had to look down at my controller because I use my Steam Deck as well, and I get my X and Y switched up. Let me know in the comments if that happens to you as well, going back and forth between the Steam Deck or the Xbox control, and then you go to the Switch controller, and then it mixes you up a little bit. So something that they've done as well, the developers, to improve performance overall, is they have reduced the density of the foliage that is being rendered. So in Unity, this is Unreal, but I assume they have something similar, but in Unity that literally takes 5 seconds to do. There's a little slider on your terrain and you can adjust the foliage density. Now the reason why foliage is so expensive is because it relies heavily on semi-transparent shaders. You can see that the visuals of this piece of foliage here, that is not a model. You see the fine details on that? That is a texture, and it has semi-transparent pixels on it. If this was modeled, it would be absurdly high poly counts. So this is simpler than it looks. The geometry is basically a bunch of flat pieces of paper, and then they're all sort of meshed together, and then they have a texture drawn on them, and it has semi-transparent pixels. But in game development environments for there's a higher cost to materials that have semi-transparency on them. And then there's also a processing cost as we have a kind of, I'm not sure if there's dithering or like a screen door transparency as we get closer. No, we don't. In games like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and others that we've seen recently, the material will become semi-transparent as it gets close to the camera. This doesn't have that, so that's good. I'm not sure if it does that in the other versions of the game, so that's good to see that. But the foliage in games tends to have a pretty high performance cost because of that. When you see games like Breath of the Wild, the grass is not actually as complex and as detailed. If we look at Scarlet and Violet, it's just basically a little long trapezoid. Those are cheaper to render than this. The same thing with characters. They have hair that has a lot of detail in it, and with NPCs, they would have had a huge performance hit. Oh, that's interesting. The camera was able to shoot past that. We rely on collision detection and raycasting. Games can use a combination of the two, but you can see here, I bet I can get the camera to go inside of that. No? Okay. That means that that bit of wood there has a collider, and that we are checking collision. Oh, I believe that this is using to handle the camera. We have collision detection instead of raycasting. You can use either or both. Generally, if you raycast and if something gets in the way of the camera looking at the player, you can have the camera move closer. In my first game on the 3DS, that was Silver Falls 3 Down Stars, I used collision checking, but I also used raycasting as well. Have a look at this, right? As the camera gets a little bit closer, it pushes itself closer. It snaps. Here we go. We're going to snap it. There we go. So that means that there is a collider specifically on that bit of wood itself. There's a technical flaw here. That means that there are overlapping geometry, overlapping polygons. So the polygon itself, oh, this is an example of what is called Z-fighting. And unfortunately, Z-fighting is not Dragon Ball related. I really would like if it was. Z-fighting is something we have to contend with. This means that two polygons are in the or multiple polygons from different objects are in the exact same place, if you have a look at that visual anomaly there. So that means that they've placed these bits of wood in the exact same spot. What would have solved this issue is if they had taken one of those game objects, the geometry, and if they had just shifted them up, one of them, if they had shifted up just a little bit, then this would not have occurred. I'm not sure if this occurs in the other versions of the game, but this is something that we have to keep an eye out for when we're developing games. We have to pay attention. We have to look very closely at, check our work. We build our environments. We need to pay very close attention to the end result and then make adjustments. You can see where one geometry starts and one geometry ends. And again, this is a very, very easy fix. The developers probably just didn't even look at this because, again, this is massive. This game is so big, and I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but this is a situation where the developers, they had to prioritize quantity because this game is huge and they don't necessarily have the resources to sit and check every single piece of wood like I am doing right now. And this is something that gamers have the luxury of. Gamers have all the time in the... I'm sorry, I have to destroy these boxes, right? You have to let me do this. Oh, you don't want to be destroyed? One of those boxes won't be destroyed? I'm feeling like I've left unfinished business. I'm not able to destroy that box. But I think the developers have done a very good job. I have to destroy this. You have to let me do this. They've done a good job of reducing the quality of textures so that the game can run on hardware that has less RAM. This has less RAM than the PlayStation 5. They've done a great job of removing the density of NPCs. That helps both the CPU and the GPU. There's just less processing for the game to do. There's less rendering. Anything that we have to render has a performance cost. And in general, we need to just think of something called scalability. How well does our solution scale? Everything that we implement in games as developers, we have to implement solutions. And I'm kind of addicted to physics simulation where I need to knock these stuff off. I can't let this go. I have to knock this off. This is how I play games. I know this is not how you're supposed to, but this is how I play games. To me, this is considered like an achievement. If I can get these... There we go. It's called Clear the Platform. Alright, am I supposed to jump down here? What do they want me to do? I'm not even paying it. I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention because I like doing... silly shenanigans here. Alright, I'm going to figure out what I'm supposed to do now. Oh, they want me to walk back. Okay, they wanted me to see that the bridge was out. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at the shadows. How far... Ah, this is excellent. Have a look. I'm looking at the shadows. See where Cloud's head is right now. Look just to the right of Cloud's head. The shadows there are actually quite grainy. This is a very low resolution dithered shadow, which means that in the distance, we can still draw shadows. As I get closer, you're going to see that dithering disappear, and it will become a higher resolution shadow. Watch just right there to the right of Cloud's head. As I walk closer, it becomes higher resolution. Excellent solution. This is a much better solution. It's just a bit smoother a transition than the one that we see in Pokemon Legends ZA. That is one such solution. So it's good to see this kind of cascading for the shadows, but this goes a little bit beyond just cascading. There's a dithering to it that sort of smoothens it out. Not smoothens it out, but it just visually is cleaner to the eye, and it's more, not cleaner, but more organic to the eye, having it broken up like that. If we look in the distance, you see we have that geometry cast in shadow. This would look atrocious if they did not have shadows being rendered at that distance. I'm just going to run forward and keep looking into the distance. Come on, you disrupted my flow, man. Can I see, laddie? Oh, it wants me to go follow Tifa. Okay, I'm trying to do my own thing here. Okay, oh, one of these situations. One of these. This is a way, see how I can't look back? This is a way to unload the assets from the previous area and to load assets for the new area. And so this basically allows us to avoid loading screens. I freaking hate these. I find these stupid skinny wall sidling areas tacky. I find that extremely tacky. It's so silly. This is sillier than loading. So what the developers need to consider is that the visuals in this area need to stay present, but they need to know how far the player can look. So anything outside of that viewing area has been unloaded from memory because we have random access memory RAM. We only have a limited amount available to. Oh yeah, I like that. Look at that. Look at the ambient occlusion as we go in there. It looks real dark in there. So we need to make sure that we don't try to load too much things into RAM. There's two things that can happen if you try to load too many things into RAM. Either you get corruption of memory and things start getting jacked up, and then instead of your textures looking right, they're all jacked up. Your models won't load in, and they look like horrifying abominations that spit in the face of God. Or you have a crash, and the game will just crash because it's not able to access the assets that have been requested of it. So it's important that we need to unload assets when we no longer need them. That's why we have those little tacky wall, skinny wall sidling areas. I don't like it. And I am making the vow now I will never use them in my own games. I just think they're silly. Anyway, those are a lot of the I don't want to end this on a complaint, but it's not really a complaint. I'm just saying I find that kind of, I don't like the wall thing. And I'm not saying this game is bad because of it. I'm just saying I find it, I don't like it. Anyway, I think the developers have done a fantastic job here. It's interesting to see the work that has gone into this, you know, to optimize it, lower resolution textures and shadows. The poly count on the characters is lower. Ooh, interesting that the camera is able to go back there. Do I clip into that? Oh, that means that this little wall here, I think this little wall does not actually have colliders on it because the camera can actually go through it and inside of it. So that doesn't have a collider for the camera. Why is that? That is an interesting. Anyway, those are the things I look at. I hope you've enjoyed spending some time with me today. I hope you're enjoying the game. I think they've done an excellent job optimizing them. Again, it does run, the full game runs even better than the demo. Really, oh, it's kind of cool. You can kind of trip past people, and then Cloud sort of like trips a little bit. I like that animation. That kind of, I bumped into somebody or tripped over something. Kind of neat. Anyway, I like the attention to detail here. Thanks very much for joining me. Take care of yourselves. If there's anything else you would like to cover, please let me know. And if you'd like to check out my latest game, that is the Hero of Destiny was killed by the final boss. And in this game, the Hero of Destiny didn't make it. He was defeated. And so the NPCs of the final town decide that they're going to try and defeat the final boss. There's more than 50 playable characters. You build a party of up to 8 characters. But the fun part about this is that all these characters are very weak. They are not heroes. They're all level 0 NPCs. They are not suited to be the heroes, and so you have to build a party, and every character has something unique about them. This works a little bit like a deck builder where every character is able to solve something logical. Some battle strategy is available if you have certain characters in your party, and you've got to find a way to basically treat battles like a puzzle and puzzle solve your way through the final dungeon because everything is way, way stronger than you. You can also level up your characters, give them equipment, and customize them and build really interesting loadouts and teams. There's a battle coliseum as well for you to test your teams that you built. 4 players, local co-op, and the game is available on Switch and eShop. There's a free version on the Android. I have an update for that. I just need to upload that and post that. And I have more versions of the game coming for free on Homebrew as well, including the PS Vita. Okay, thanks very much for spending some time with me. Take care of yourselves. Be well. I'll see you around.